People are afraid to teach it because there's not enough research behind the methods. And it's really just the fact that people don't want to put the money behind the research. Because if you come up with a cure for something that you can go out and plant in your garden, then you might be putting some of the pharmaceutical companies out of business. So nobody wants that. It's all about capitalism. So I would say that I think that's important. I think certain regions are more open to homeopathic medicine. Like say you're in you go to California or maybe Colorado, of course, with the legalization of marijuana there and CBD. In Florida, there's the Chew Institute. So my friend from veterinary school she got her certified veterinary acupuncturist license. So I think there's definitely room for homeopathic veterinary medicine. If you haven't already, I would search out some people in the region, join as many networks like Black BVM Network if you haven't already. There's a Black veterinarians page on Facebook. Like there are a lot of different networking environments where you don't necessarily have to seek them out yourself. You can get referred to someone who would be more than happy to have you come on board. As far as your age, I think that's an advantage. Everyone has it. Everyone has something to bring to the table. Okay. I was an older law school student, but I was able, when I wrote my personal statement, I was able to pull from all of my life experiences and just show them how I would be a strong candidate. Everyone is a strong candidate, but because you are older, you have a family, you're able to talk about being able to balance those things and the maturity that you have. And I'm not saying that our younger colleagues are not mature, so just make sure that's clear, everybody. But what I'm saying is you do have additional experiences that you'll be drawing from and that you can help lead in that respect. So it's an advantage. It's not a disadvantage. But you will have to balance more, having a family. I had my older daughter with me, and my husband was I was in Austin, he was in Fort Worth, he was opening his practice, and it was a big challenge to do that, to live apart and have a child with me, a young child. She didn't understand what I was doing. So there are going to be some challenges with that, but you have a lot of strengths to draw on as well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I was going to say also, I believe Dr. Quincy Hawley, his wife has a mobile vet clinic that does homeopathic medicine. So okay. Pretty cool. I think she's an acupuncturist.
Yeah, it's definitely where to be.
Oh, Adrice said she does.
I can do that. Yes.
And Dr. Hawley does holistic. So he's also here. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that question.
Kristen, did you say you were at Tuskegee?
Yes, I'm a rising second year.
Okay, congratulations. You made it through anatomy.
Yes, the struggle that was anatomy.
That's so funny. So it looks like there's a question from Marquise. He said, how do you see vet med changing for current/upcoming vet students when it comes to grades and exposure with coronavirus?
So I am 18 years removed from going to vet school. Dr. Price actually might be a better person to answer this question because you're closer to all of that. I would just say this real quick though. I'm amazed at the use of social media, this platform that you guys have, and that I think is something really important with the next generation of veterinarians to really make your mark on these platforms, to connect, to share, to do all these things. So that's something that I'm just now getting an Instagram page but y'all been doing it for a while, but it's a great way to connect. So anyway, I know that was not really your question, Marquise, and I want to defer to Dr. Price, but I just wanted to say that that's one thing that as a vet student, you have to be on that to get out there. So
yeah, for sure. So for me, I was probably 2 or 3 rotations from graduating when COVID-19 kicked us out of the hospital. And so I feel like I had the experience on both ends of the transition, what we were doing during COVID-19 and what vet school was like before that. honestly, in your first 2 years and maybe even that third year, there's not much that you're missing, because you were going to be in the classroom for about 8 hours a day anyway, and now you're just doing it on your computer. The hands-on labs, that's where I'm not sure how they're going to do that, as far as anatomy labs or physical exams and all the different hands-on labs. So again, they're going to have to get creative, right? Maybe they have a couple students at a time. But for the most part, I think that, in those first 2 years, the experience will be just about the same. I'm not sure about the part of your question that says grades and exposure. So if you want to unmute yourself and maybe elaborate on that.
I can also speak when he's done.
Okay. Marquise, did you want to unmute?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, I guess when it comes to grades and exposure, because I know I've been trying to get some internships or even like some volunteer experience while during the coronavirus, and a lot of hospitals aren't allowing people to come in. So I was wondering, do you see like vet school understanding that we're going through this and being more lenient when it comes to letting students into their hospital? And also when it comes to grades, do you see the grades are going to be impacted negatively or positively, being that we're moving from traditional in-class settings to online, and the adjustment from professors who may not be used to using technology and stuff like that?
So I would hope that vet schools would take that into account, because obviously that is a major event and issue that's happening. I can't see why they wouldn't, but that's public health right there, right? Saying, oh, these students that we're getting in 2023 actually went through COVID-19 during their most important year of undergrad. That was their junior year, and now they're applying to vet school, and that, so I would hope that they would take that into account, but I'm not sure what they're going to do. And then this is my piece about admissions. I always talk about this. There is one study that came from Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine's Associate Dean, Dr. Jennifer Hodgson, that talks about veterinary hours prior to veterinary school and the impact that it has on your performance in veterinary school. And there's no correlation to the amount of hours that you do before vet school and your performance in vet school. And that only serves as a barrier to diversity and inclusion when asking students to have 400 to 600 veterinary experience hours. And there are people in situations that cannot obtain that. So that is my barrier to diversity and inclusion and admissions. But anyways, I will give it back to Dr. Bowens for questions. I think someone else, Alexia.
I do see Dr. Rachel Cesar Martinez on as well.
Oh, yes.
She's hiding.
How did she do that? Oh, yeah, she is hiding. She can always do that.
Okay, so I was just gonna say something to like address your question, Marquise. This all happened when we were finishing up large animal anatomy, and it was pretty hard because of course, we're so used to being able to put our hands on, dissect this, and for me, it was easier for me to remember, like, oh, like under this is this, or above this, like that's the way I learned, and so it was hard, like, in that aspect. But just like Tiara said, like in other classes, like when it comes to physiology or neurology and stuff like that, typically you should be able to do it at home. But I'm also someone who, like, I need a study space, and so in my apartment now I don't have that. I have 2 roommates in a living room, so like that doesn't really work for me. So going in, maybe trying to, if you haven't already like found an apartment, maybe get like a 2-bedroom or something so that you can have like an office space, would be helpful.
Any other questions? I know one of the questions we were sent was about giving advice to people, to veterinary students, to new grads. And I know there may be I think everybody here is either pre-vet or veterinary school. There may be 1 or 2 docs on here, and if they have any advice, I definitely welcome that. I would just say, as far as veterinary medicine, we're in a new phase with everything that's going on with diversity, with people deciding that they finally want to talk about it, other than Black people. And while I know this is not necessarily geared towards D&I think it's important to remember that you are coming of age in a different type of generation where more people are open to talking about your concerns, okay? Because when I practiced, I had an experience in 2013. I was working for a small business, small animal practice, and with a single owner. And she called me into her office one day. I came in and I was with one of my mentees who's also a vet now. And she said, Priscilla, I wanted to talk to you. And I said, about what? And I'm not the only person with this story, but it's just interesting that it happened in 2013 when we had an African-American president at the time, US president. She said, well, I was so appalled. I had a client call and he said he wouldn't bring his dog in because he saw your picture on the website. And he said he did not want an expletive touching their dog. And I was like, okay. She was like, are you okay? I said, well, I'm not okay. I don't like it, but I'm not surprised. And she said, how can you not be surprised? And because she had never had an African-American employee at her hospital, she never had to deal with this. And while she was definitely an ally and told him that he didn't need to ever come back to her practice, which is what I would expect someone that I'd be working for to do. And if she hadn't done it, I probably, to be honest, would have told my husband that I was quitting, even though he would have tried to talk me into staying. Because if you don't respect yourself, if you don't demand respect, then people won't respect you. And you deserve to take up space just like anybody else, okay? But she and I had a very long conversation after that about African Americans and the way we've been treated in this country. And she was just shocked to know. She's like, well, I thought, we were in the post-racial America. And I'm like, no, that's people who are saying that who don't really want to talk about what's going on. And so you're going to come across that. It may be subtle, it may be more obvious like I did. I even had, when I was a tech, I think I was working at a Banfield as a technician, trying to get my hours. And I ran across an owner who said their dog did not like Black people. And I was like, whatever. And it was just some silly stuff. I've never met an African-American person with a dog who said their dog didn't like white people or Latinos or whomever, women. I mean, so I'm saying all that to say, you guys, you have to stand up for what you believe in. You have to, because this profession does not talk about race. Okay, I actually had a conversation with some people at the AVMA because I made a comment on their LinkedIn page about how lackluster their initial response was to what was going on, and it all starts with leadership. And when you look at our profession, it's led by white men, old white men. And that's just a fact, okay? We are finally going to have the first Latino president of AVMA from Puerto Rico. And I'm extremely happy about that. But I also told them, why haven't we had an African-American president of the AVMA? Why aren't they on boards? When you look at it, you'll see representation in vet school, like at SAVMA. I was a SAVMA rep. I went to the conferences. But when you get out into practice and you look at your local veterinary medical associations, you won't see us, okay? I was going to run for like secretary in the Tarrant County associations, it's Fort Worth and other areas. And someone who was already treasurer decided instead of staying treasurer for 2 years, they wanted to also now run against me. So, and I'm not saying that it was a conspiracy, but it's going to be hard to find representation on the local levels when you get out of school. But those local levels make decisions for the county that affects the state VMAs, and then those people are delegates for the AVMA. So it's the whole organized veterinary medicine process is not for you. It's not built for you to be involved. But in order, if you decide you want to change that, you're going to have to get together and get allies, and then you'll have to. That's how you're going to make progress. because they're just not gonna give you anything. I don't know if you listened to the podcast 1619. I finally listened to it the other day. Somebody recommended it to me. If you have not listened to that, I highly recommend it. It's from the New York Times. It's stuff you already know, but it's probably stuff you don't. But anyway, so I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I'm just trying to let you know this is how it's going to be when you get out into practice. It's not going to be like SABMA is in vet school. It's a lot different. So.
Yeah, and to add to that, Dr. Bowens, what you said is very true. The representation in veterinary schools is increasing, right? And the representation in the field with that will increase. But with that increased representation, that doesn't automatically flow over to leadership positions. We saw that happen with women in veterinary medicine, right? Veterinary medicine is 60% women, 90% of our leadership is still men. That math, it doesn't add up. And that's why, Dr. Cesar Martinez is on here, and she was one of the founding members for the Women's Veterinary Leadership Development Initiative. And I was a part of that group. It was hard to get participation, but I was definitely a part of that group because I wanted to know why. And I will say that trying to become a leader in veterinary medicine, there are certain ways to do it. And because we don't have representation there aren't a lot of mentors to teach us how to. Right now, I'm getting mentorship from a couple people that are allies that have really done well in vet med, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I ever would have figured this out on my own. And so it's super important not only to have that representation, but then to have that mentorship. And if people want to get into those positions, knowing that there are other people, doing it and things like that. So. It looks like someone asked if we want to go to another session, do we just leave or will we be dismissed? So I'll start the next Zoom session for the people that I'm with. But if Dr. Bowens, there's no pressure, but if you have more questions that you want to take, if people want to stick around and ask her questions and she's willing, I can make you the host of this meeting and you guys can hang out.
It looks like Dr. Cesar Martinez, were you going to say something about that last?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because I'd like to hear from you about your thoughts on leadership in veterinary medicine, especially as it relates to minorities.
Yeah, well, I did a thorough stint on leadership and vet med that started, in 2015, I think. And I was on the House of Delegates for the AVMA. And yeah, I was very few of the women on there and a person of color, period. There was probably maybe one other Black person that was on the House of Delegates from Alabama, I believe. But that was it. And then I did meet someone, I think he was from North Carolina, and I went and saw him and I was like, hey, how you doing? And he, and I was like, wow, it's nice to see other people of color here. And he's like, yeah, it's been like this for a while. It's still like this. And I was like, yeah, it's unfortunate. And he's like, yeah, it's probably my last year. And I was like, really? No, you shouldn't leave. And he's like, I don't know, just kind of tired of being alone, trying to be the only one. And I was like, yeah. But I told him, I was like, look, well, that's what we got to do, though. We got to stick out here, and we're going to be alone for a little while, but we got to do it. I'm like, because if we don't, who will? And that's what I always say. It's like, if I'm not out there trying to be a leader in veterinary medicine, then no one else will be. And recently I did step back a little bit from the national leadership components, like with AVMA, American Association of Equine Practitioners, the DCVMA, I was executive director with them. But I kind of stepped back a little bit because I'm doing more stuff with my local community. And also I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'm trying to get all that, but I definitely will get engaged again in national leadership. And I think it's really important. And I did make a comment on one of the posts on Facebook regarding pushing minorities to get involved in leadership in veterinary medicine. But I had said that, well, great, you can put the numbers in there. I go, but you need to make sure there's the inclusiveness too. You need to make sure we feel welcomed. We don't want to be that only one. And, you know, people's asking us these questions about like, or saying to you, you like margaritas, right? Because you're from Mexico? And you're like, I was like, no, I'm not from Mexico. It's Louisiana. It's close, but it's not. It's so, but that's kind of wears on you after a while. You're just like, ugh. I was like, there's another convention. Let's see how many people are gonna ask me about going to eat at a Mexican restaurant. But yeah, that's it. I think we still gotta just try to put ourselves out there and get involved. Because like I said, if you don't, it's then it's going to continue. Luckily, I did have an older white man. He was the one who pushed me to get engaged with the House of Delegates. He like hit me on my side and said, "Put your hand up. You should do this." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I think that's what we all need is pushers behind us,
Right.
saying like, "You can do it. Just I know you can do it." Because sometimes we kind of fall back a bit on that. So
exactly.
but that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dr. Cesar Martinez, for speaking up about that. She's actually hosting the next breakout room session. So we're going to move over to her Zoom link. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowens. We really appreciate it. And of course, everyone, you can see the Zoom links that we have, the speakers that are going on from 1:30 to 2, and join their sessions. All right. Bye, y'all.
Everybody. Thank you.